Hello there, my very good friends. On this news video, the backlash to Drew McIntyre's WrestleMania plans might have paid off.
Jey Uso is the man, and that was always the plan.
Chad Gable, he's also the man, but he's not going to Mexico.
And Tegan reveals a serious illness during her last WWE run.
Yes, I'm Andy.
I'm Michael.
And this is the news. All right, let's kick this one off by talking about Drew McIntyre. So you remember, a couple of weeks ago, just after the Royal Rumble, a report came out from the Daily Mail stating that Drew McIntyre was upset with his WrestleMania plans. He felt that he was deserving of a bigger match than the one that was planned for him, which was Damian Priest. A source had described it as a nothing match. Drew felt that after being one of WWE's standout performers in 2024, he deserved a bigger spot. Which I love to hear, because I like it when people are angling for their spots and going, no, I'm the man.
Yeah.
Like, give me a spot. Even though in the landscape, when you think of like Cody versus Cena potentially, and Roman, Seth, and Punk, and then Gunther and Jey, it's quite hard to think of what they could have that's bigger for Drew. So it was an interesting situation, but it might have paid off for Drew because, according to Dr. Scoops, Dr. Chris Featherstone, PhD, hope you don't mind us calling you Dr. Scoops, I like it, but he reported yesterday, I'll just read you the report. Sources within WWE have informed me that the online backlash of Drew McIntyre's potential WrestleMania opponent has opened up internal discussions to reevaluate current plans. So maybe they've seen that and pivoted, which is how it should work. I mean, if something isn't working, you listen to your audience and you move in a different direction. I will say, personally, I'm not sure I would describe Damian Priest as a nothing match.
No.
Clearly, people close to the situation do, and hey, look, that's fine. Different perspectives. I think that Priest was a world champion for a fair length of time, and his reign's not going to go down amongst the all-time, greats. You're not going to be looking 10 years from now. You will not be looking at that reign side by side with Roman Reigns, right? But at the same time, he's a guy with stock. He's a guy who's pretty popular. He's a good wrestler. He's a good talker. He's a good guy on TV. I think that he has the worst entrance music in the world, but it's dreadful, but I don't hold that against him. At the same time, I do agree that Drew, for me, was probably the best wrestler in WWE last year, aside from maybe Cody, right? In terms of like promos and just delivering and storylines and match quality, he was exceptional all year.
Yeah.
And maybe he does deserve a bigger match. That being said, I'm not sure it's a nothing match. Either way, the pivot will be interesting.
Mixed feelings on this one. I agree and second the point about the wrestlers that have to fight for the spots, because that's ultimately the kind of competitive locker room you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be at the expense of another wrestler, but you can big up yourself and say that, no, I believe I deserve more. And the more wrestlers that do that, the better it is for the whole product. Because if you've got more, we can kind of see it at the moment. The slate of top wrestlers within WWE that want those top spots, and there aren't many of them, is so competitive that it does make for a kind of a captivating main event scene as a result. Jim Ross used to call it in the Attitude Era his Shark Tank, and that was the kind of locker room environment that he fostered. That's how you get like a Rock coming up under a Steve Austin. Like not just guys that are content to work under the one main eventer sort of thing. And Drew McIntyre did have a great year last year alongside CM Punk. The other side of that, the other side of that coin is that Damian Priest was the world champion. It's not for nothing. There was obviously the WrestleMania cash-in by Damian on Drew last year, and Damian's victory over Drew in Scotland last year as two very significant defeats.
And the Royal Rumble elimination.
We
got a trio.
Drew McIntyre's gimmick now is a guy that is either very, very bitter or pretends that he's not very, very bitter. And there's a man in Damian Priest who would give him 3 reasons to be very, very bitter. The story is there if you want to tell it. Obviously, Drew has thought that there is a better spot for him. Look, CM Punk and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and everybody else probably believes there's a better spot for them, and they've got to kind of fight and work for that one. It certainly does feel this year like, in spite of the massive lineup of stars, the WrestleMania card has undergone numerous sort of changes and may yet still do that.
You never know who's lurking, brother. You never know. Well, I mean, you do. You're welcome.
The one match that apparently isn't going to change, hasn't changed, and has been on the docket for longer than a lot of people would have presumed before the Royal Rumble is Jey Uso versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight title. Of course, on Raw, Jey did what most people predicted he would, which was call Gunther as his shot for WrestleMania after Gunther kicked his ass. And there had been some speculation when Jey won the Rumble that this was a late call, a pivot, part of a wider set of compromises to accommodate other main eventers and the like. Fightful say no, and who are we to doubt them? According to Fightful Select, at least, they have said, quote, the plan was it was the plan for, quote, quite some time for Jey and Gunther to be the call and not a last-minute decision, which makes it all the bolder that they did the Saturday night's main event match, knowing that a bunch of people would then think, they're just running this back. Yeah. Whereas, in fact, what it can do now is serve the news story of kind of look how easy you were for me on a random Saturday in January. Why do you think, Jey Uso, that WrestleMania is going to be any different? You know, it's very interesting that they would give away their WrestleMania main event on a free TV show 3 months before the match itself takes place. Yeah. And as it turns out, it might just prove to be quite a canny bit of booking gamesmanship on WWE's part, if indeed this was in the plans for as long as Fightful suggests.
It's a babyface working to overcome a deficit, which is the classic pro wrestling. It's the classic story of all humanity.
It's a very believable deficit as well, which helps.
Exactly. And it's one that makes me thankful that the old creative regime is no longer in power, because 200% next week on the Tron, there would be Jey Uso dressed as a clown in a little Photoshop with some silly music like Roman Reigns and the big, remember that? It would not be great. So, I think we align on this. Wow, that was businessy. I think we agree that the online backlash...
Our verticals are aligned.
Yeah, synergize in the stratosphere. I think we can agree that the backlash, if you can call it that, way overblown. Ultimately doesn't matter because he's over in the arena. Look, Jey Uso is not he's not Kenta Kobashi between the ropes, right? No. But I don't know if
Kenta wishes.
Come on. don't do it. But I don't necessarily think that matters as much in this scenario. Yeah. And I think Gunther, look, if him and Gunther are going to be laying this match out for like a month, man, they're going to think of something that will work on the night. And also, if you want to set up Cody's opponent elsewhere, then having Jey win the Rumble, although my initial reaction was literally to just tweet the word, what? I woke up and I was like, yeah. It clarified, clears the path. So for me, there are a few interesting directions you can go now. Obviously, Cena has been heavily speculated for Cody. I wonder if a more compelling direction might be to tell a longer story with Cena and he doesn't win the chamber, and then he has to fight, have I still got it? Can I still challenge? And then you build a longer term story up to maybe SummerSlam. In the meanwhile, you could have Punk challenge Cody at Mania, because that's the one that we in the office are all dribbling over at the moment. You could then, if me personally, not a triple threat fan, I would simplify Roman and his issues with Seth into a singles match if Punk's over here. That would free John Cena up. Oh, Drew McIntyre wants a bigger match. It doesn't get much bigger than that. So there's a lot of really interesting things you can do. And then on the women's side, Tiffany versus Charlotte looks like a goer. Rhea versus Io is my personal preference, but I don't know how we get there. There's a lot of cool stuff, and the intrigue in finding out what they're actually going to do is part of the appeal.
Totally. To your point there, the Jey Uso Gunther thing already been established on Raw this week already allowed for the Elimination Chamber combatants to call their shot with Cody. Yeah. It's not a case of winning that chamber and what you're gonna do? You're gonna take out your Cody and your challenge. No, now. The Elimination Chamber, the main event of a Sky Dome Stadium show, let's not forget, the Rogers Centre for Elimination.
Is that how people play the drums? I don't know.
All those challenges in the chamber are going for Cody. So that is, they've got what they wanted out of the Elimination Chamber in the Rogers Centre. It's another mini Royal Rumble. The best 6 winner fights Cody. That's massive. That's going to sell a few tickets to that show as well. You're thinking of suck it, aren't you?
Yeah, that's just the best.
It's like a shop vac.
David Wallace, he's playing the key. You can't hear a note. You can't hear a thing coming out of it.
What a man!
What you gonna do?
He looks like he's living an awesome life. He just puts peanut butter on stuff and smashes the keyboard. And
There's so much pro wrestling in that song. What are you gonna do? Suck it. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Chad Gable. Chad Gable. So he, frustrated by his inability to beat luchadors, he is off WWE TV at the moment momentarily. He's told the rest of America Made, hold it down, I'm gonna, master the dark arts of Lucha Libre. This created a bit of speculation. I can't remember where it came from, that he might be going to AAA, which you know, AAA is certainly a promotion. CMLL is much better, but obviously they're in agreement with AEW. However, this doesn't seem to be happening. It doesn't look like an excursion is on the cards. On Wrestling Observer Live, Brian Alvarez reported the following. By the way, the story with Chad Gable, he is not going to AAA. But how can I say this? He's not going to AAA, but there is a reason that story came out, and they did have a plan involving a luchador mentoring Chad Gable, but the fact is it may or may not still be happening. So looks like a different direction. I wonder who that luchador might be. It was quite interesting yesterday. The Dr. Wagner III was taken off free agency table. He's going to AAA for a year. Because he wants to tell a story around the sanctity of his mask, because his family was really hurt when his dad, Dr. Wagner Jr., lost the mask. So I wonder, he was heavily linked with WWE. I wonder if that was maybe something they were looking at. Either way, I do think it's an interesting story. I liked kind of Chad Gable's bad night in the first 10, 15 minutes of the Royal Rumble, where it's like, there's luchadors everywhere and they're kicking my ass. What's going on? What do I do? So I'm into it. I think it's a cool little story. It's a cool little undercard fodder. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to plan.
Yeah, what I like more than anything about this, because I don't necessarily think it's going to be Chad Gable's ticket to the top. We continue to wonder what that is, but nonetheless, he does at least facilitate a bunch of other people rising up. This is a kind of story of Chad Gable's career, right? Like he either salvages tag teams or he makes new stars, and then he kind of moves on to the next project while somebody else goes off to the moon and he kind of stays here on Earth. Chad Gable was used to give Penta a great match on night one, and it was not for nothing. It was for this storyline, right? So this kicks off his obsession with wanting to become a luchador. Get a bit of comedy with him looking to Dominic Mysterio. It was like, you're the guy I need, that kind of thing. And I think there could be something very cute at the very end of this, where he thinks he's done it. He thinks he's mastered the dark arts, as you say. I wonder what the original plan was with who that was going to be. Maybe there's been some changes, but I wonder if, to kind of like with the story that started at Penta, does Chad Gable come out and give it the big one about me? And I've done it. I've cracked luchadors. Like, I'll take on any luchador in the world, and this is maybe like 6 months down the line, and it comes all the way full circle, and he's beaten by Rey Fenix in his WWE debut. Ooh. And it's this nice bit. It starts with Penta in January and it ends with Rey Fenix in the middle of the year when Chad finally, like, he comes out as like El Chado and he's like, I've done it, I've cracked it, like nobody can stop me. Like, I'd beat Penta if I wanted to. I could beat any member of your stinking family. Whatever.
It's good.
Like,
it's good.
If that was the sort of the little arc of all of this, I think it could be quite nice. But yeah, I wouldn't have minded seeing Gable, just a visual of him working anywhere but WWE at this point, because he's another guy. Like, you know, it's 10 years ago now since the Reddy William Gable run in NXT. He's been within that system for so long. Yeah. The visual of him being somewhere else, even just for the benefit of the story, is interesting, isn't it?
Imagine what an incredible spot fest him versus Vikingo would be.
Oh my God.
It would just be like, do you like Skittles? Here's 20 kilos of Skittles. You will feel the same way.
Aye. It's not going to be rubbish. That's Chad Gable's stamp of approval, isn't it? It's never rubbish.
Unless it's Shorty G. But that's not his fault.
Indeed.
It's not his fault.
Indeed.
Anyway.
The G was a ruler. Let's never forget that.
G, you know what the G stands for in 2025?
What's that?
Goto, brother.
It does, you're right.
Every G in the world, according to the great man.
Shorty G himself, the IWGP champion.
That's him. He's done it.
That's what we've always called him.
G Unit. All that. Anything else with G in it? It's the letter before H.
It is, which is the first letter of my surname, and that has no relation to Tegan Knox, who is now going by Nixon Newell again, back on the Indies and available for bookings, and obviously kind of a celebrated indie standout who we're all very excited about here in the UK when she signed for WWE, because of the wave she'd made as that sort of scene was booming in the mid to late 2010s. However, we all kind of remember the tragic tale of Tegan Knox and her two back-to-back brutal injuries that she suffered early into the run. Then she was released. She was brought back as one of like Triple H's first rehires when he kind of got like a bit more control within WWE after Vince McMahon resigned in disgrace. And I think everybody, within reason, thought, here we go. Like, finally the Tegan Knox run that we've all been robbed. The injuries are taken from her, and then like WWE have kind of seemingly lost interest in. Well, it never really materialised as we thought. She was never a big player within WWE. There was a couple of title shots here and there, but largely she was absent for long swathes, would drop in for a mini-series. She tagged with Natalia and whatnot, and then was gone again. And ultimately that did lead to another release in late 2024. Well, she has spoken to Metro and has actually talked about a little bit of stuff that was going on behind the scenes at the time. She said, quote, I did get incredibly sick for a little while. We didn't get a legit answer. Went through tests, was in hospital, a bunch of different stuff. I think it was down to a lot of stress mixed with other things, but I was really sick, which contributed to my time off. I think that started it off. Even though I said I'm good to go, I just get sick now and again. It wasn't deathly or anything. It was a mix of them wanting to be safe, miscommunication with a lot of different people, because it was going from their doctors to outside doctors to hospitals. It just got lost in communication. I think unnecessary time off started with necessary time off, if that makes sense. Which obviously it does, but you know, WWE, as we've always known, is the churn, the machine that never stops, and then it's very easy if you are kind of taken out of that churn to
get back in,
find your way back in. She has found her way back into wrestling. Obviously, she'll be wrestling Danny Luna, TNA's Danny Luna, in her first indie date back since the release for Attack, which is Wales-based promotion. She's going to be massive when you're going to hear their Sailor V music probably. It's going to be like everyone's going to be really buzzing to get Nixon Yule back. But yeah, I guess that's a little bit behind the scenes stuff from her about, well, another reason, I guess, why the WWE run didn't work out. Because even on screen, it was clear that things just weren't clicking.
Yeah, absolutely. Cursed run. Yeah. The serious knee injuries, the illness, lots of things that were not her fault at all, completely going against her. I feel really sorry for the way her WWE run went, although I'm sure there are things she's certainly grateful for. And I'm sure she drew some positives from it, of course. She entered it as one of the most promising prospects coming out of the UK Indies. I think she was in her
field at the time as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think she was in her early 20s at the time, but she obviously broke through in companies like Attack and Progress and others. I think she's a fantastic wrestler. I fought that for about 10 years. And I hope that the next couple of years are kinder to her. Whether it's in her health or in injuries or bookings or whatever. I think it's a great shame that she has not reached the level of stardom that she seemed ordained for, warranted on her talent and effort levels, and it's not her fault. I don't know how you can look at her story and not want more for her. So like, I'm buzzing to see what she does next. I think the Attack date in particular is going to be so cathartic, because that company is ran by people she came up with, like Mark Andrews, and other like tenured members of the UK indie scene. And Danny Luna is someone who has emerged like a little bit more recently, so that's kind of a cool little aspect to their match as well. I'll never rule Nixon Newell out, because for as long as she wants to wrestle, I think that the potential is still there, and I hope that she just knocks it out of the park, and I hope that life brings her nothing but good fortune. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that as well. The interview did go on. She went on to say she's going to kind of give it 2 years and decide if she gets the feeling back for wrestling. You know, it's been, as you've sort of articulated there, quite a long and arduous last half decade. So she's going to give it a couple more years, she said. Takes her to 2027 to assess if like she still feels like she wants to be in wrestling. So you know, you sense that as a result she's going to throw herself into it, and we can expect to see a bit more from her. See if she really finds that fire for it again, or decides to move on. So yeah, it's going to be one to watch, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Immediate future Nixon Hill. One to monitor going forward. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this video, check out our morning one where we talk about all kinds of different stuff, mostly Ricky Starks, to be honest. But if you want to hear about that, it's right here on your screen right now. Have a great day. Bye.